Welcome to Business Africa, where you get the latest on the African continent's economy. I am Amel Inga. In the headlines this week, automobile giants will invest $3 billion into car manufacturing in South Africa. Africa solely has over 500 million citizens without birth certificate. Finally, in Kenya, the country is looking forward to raising $2.8 billion from Eurobonds in the coming months due to beleaguered economic crisis. South Africa's government's ambitious plan to woo investors seems to see the light of day as automobile giants including Nissan and even Mercedes are announcing an investment of $3 billion by 2023. To many analysts, this is likely to succeed as plausible investments have already been achieved in sectors including pharmaceuticals and e-commerce in South Africa. Serge Kofi and Ronald Kato have the details.
$3 billion is the amount that automakers have promised to invest in South Africa over the next 5 years. The announcement by the Carmakers Association, which includes Nissan, Volkswagen and Isuzu, was made at an investment conference in Johannesburg. The news could boost the automotive industry in South Africa, which had lost its status as a construction hub on the continent to Morocco. The investment program is good news for the South African government, which launched a campaign last April to raise at least $100 billion to boost the country's economy over a 5-year period. South Africa has experienced slow growth over the past decade, a slowdown compounded by political uncertainty that led to Jacob Zuma's resignation and his replacement by Cyril Ramaphosa earlier this year.
Some 500 million people in the continent do not have an official representation, reports the World Bank. 494 million of these people are in sub-Saharan Africa. World Bank has, however, dedicated a figure of $6 billion to initiate a major digital identification campaigns across the African continent. Ruth Lago and Hawa Suleiman Issa have the details. 500 people are without a birth certificate on the continent, according to the World Bank's latest reports. 494 million of these people are in sub-Saharan Africa. In a related development, UNICEF figures indicate that some 85 million children are not registered and do not have birth certificate. Analysts are therefore pointing that the situation reduces access to health, education, and financing services for a large part of the African population. As World Bank's desire for a change of this narrative increases, the institution pledges $6 billion for the identification of these children on the African continent. Further, the institution intends to build on the continent's digital identification and civil registration campaigns through the ID4D initiative. Hence, nearly $1 billion has already been injected in promoting digital identification in 23 countries in Africa. Experts believe these measures will improve financial inclusion, governance, regional integration, and the promotion of public investment in human capital. Right, we are analyzing this situation in Africa with El Haji Elion Diop, Commissioner for Economic Survey and Professor for International Economics at the Eco National Administrative School and Polytechnic in Dakar. Hello, sir, and welcome to the program.
Yes, hello, thank you for your invitation.
We are just seeing a World Bank report indicating that Africa has the lowest coverage rate in terms of birth identification. How do you analyze the direct impact of this on the African economy?
Yes, we have a really interesting problem that concerns all African leaders, if not all Africans. Even if we are not the only ones in the world, we are talking about 1 billion. But 500 million are in Africa, so it is considerable. Do you realize if someone really doesn't have an identity or if we don't get to know our populations, how do you expect to really understand the preferences of the populations there and the problems they face? because they are invisible beings. They are called invisible beings. This is a problem that has been around for quite some time, and even on our world in Africa. We do not have what is called property rights. If the state does not have a precise idea of the number of populations, the impact can only be negative on the African economy or in the economic development of African countries, because it is precisely this demand that is representative. However, if that is not taken into account, even for our safety, it is a real problem if we can't identify a number of problems. So this is a question that seems to me to be crucial for Africa, and which raises a little bit and relevance of the policies we pursue if we cannot cover, or if we have a very low coverage rate of the needs of our population. So I think it is an important problem, and one that must involve all African leaders to address this problem in the most visible way.
It's obvious having this data is imperative. So on what grounds are we seeing African governments make important policy and developmental decisions without the statistics?
Yes, that's the problem of African strategy. You have heard a bit everywhere in African countries, even at the level of the African Union. We have an agenda for 2063, but obviously an agenda for 2063 that could not take into account almost half of the African population, because 500 million is perhaps half or 40% of the African population. So you see that this is a serious problem. You know, in our countries in Africa, we often have this weakness, which consists in not really having a precise idea of our potentialities, whether it is our human resource or our human capital, or even our mining resources, our wealth. We generally do not have a precise idea of what we have, and with that, you can't prosper. With that, you can't develop. Take up the challenge of Africa, because I think we are leaving aside essential elements which are not only the identification of people, but also the very identification of the owners of all the resources there. In any case, allocating at least to specific population the resources of a different country so that we can really exploit them in the most efficient and profitable way for Africans.
According to the World Bank, $6 billion is the estimated amount required for this process of identification. If this campaign pulls through, what kind of change do you expect to see reflecting on the African continent?
Yes, excellent question. I thank you for this question, because I think that the identification will make it possible to achieve, first of all, the essential objectives today, which are the objectives of sustainable development. You cannot achieve the objective of sustainable development. You cannot think about future generations if you are not able to deal first with today's heritage. To deal with the people, you make history today. So that's the serious problem. That is why if we really succeed in identifying them, the benefits for African states and African populations, from my point of view, will be immense, because it will allow not only financial but also political inclusion. But it will make it possible to build true democracies that are able to know the collective preferences of their population. Wealth must serve all African populations, and therefore, for this African population to be served, they must be included. To include them, they must be identified, they must be known, they must be listed, they must be identified.
Thank you, El Hadji Eliondo, for your time and insight.
But please, I have to thank you for that. When you receive someone, you offer them hospitality. So I thank you for that.
Right, that was El Hadji Eliondo, Commissioner for Economic Surveys and Professor of International Economics in Dakar, talking to us there. As you're watching Business Africa, we take you to Kenya, entangled by economic crisis, hence seeking 2.8 billion from Eurobonds as a way out. Stay with us.